Hey there, Blue here with another yoga snack for you. This one's called the Omni-directional pelvic tilt, or as I like to call it, the fishbowl technique. And it's great for lower back pain or releasing lower back tension or just releasing tension in general. So let's just get straight into it. Okay, so we'll make our way straight down into a reclining position and just settle yourself into the mat here. Take any movements need be to get a little bit more comfortable. Take a couple of breaths, settle yourself into this moment. Settle yourself into this space. And maybe closing the eyes. And just let yourself become as present as possible and as tuned into your body as possible. And when you're ready, I want you to bring your awareness to your pelvis here. And just notice where the weight is sitting in your pelvis. More than likely you'll feel a little bit of a grounding through the tailbone, or the weight will be sitting down into the tailbone, and that's fine. Notice what that feels like in relation to your lower back. And then notice your hips here, or the outer edges of your pelvis really. Notice where they're sitting. Notice if the weight is equal through both hips, or if some of us have a tendency to sort of sit the weight into one side. Either way, it's fine. It doesn't matter. We're just noticing. And then what we're going to do is imagine we have a fishbowl sitting on our navel here. And that fishbowl was sort of half filled with water. So if we were to tip the body to the right-hand side, it would tip the water would coat the right-hand side of the fishbowl. And if we were to tip over to the left-hand side, the water would tip and coat the left-hand side of the fishbowl. So we might bring the water back into a neutral position here, let the water level flatten out. And the same again, if we were to roll the pelvis away from the body, the bowl would tip away from us and the water would tip towards our knees. And the same goes for if we were to bring the navel in towards the spine, feeling the tailbone lift a little bit, the water would tip towards our chest or tip towards our chin. And that's our fishbowl, so just visualize that. And that fishbowl is sitting there on your abdomen. And we're going to start to take movements in relation to that water level in our fishbowl. And imagine how that water level might coat the edges of the bowl. And we might start off by just taking some gentle rocks from left to right into the hips here. And try not to put too much pressure into the heels, or try not to let the feet do the work too much. Try to keep the feet relatively soft, the arches soft. And just gently start to maybe lift the weight off or out of the right hip, not picking it up at all. And gently rocking into the left hip, and then we'll swap sides. So there's almost no movement at all here. We're just sort of noticing the body gently shift weight from side to side. So imagine that fishbowl sitting on our navel is the water's only just moving. It's just rocking from side to side, just tipping from left to right. And let's do the same thing in the other directions, or a forward and back tilt. So the water might be only just tipping towards the knees. And then only just changing water level as it tips towards the chin. And then back towards the knees. and then back towards the chin. And then we might do it once in each direction. So find yourself a neutral position, and we'll tip the water over to the right hand side. And you might be getting a little bit more dramatic with the movements now. We might rock that fishbowl over to the left hand side. And then we might tip the water towards the knees, feeling the lower back lift just a touch. And then we might tip it back towards the chin, feeling the lower back lengthen a little bit. And then we'll come back to a neutral position. And we'll play with one more plane of movement here. So we will be shifting the hips. We'll be lengthening one side and shortening the other side of the body here. So one hip will draw in towards the ribs and the other will lengthen away. So we've played with tipping the body forward and back and left to right, or tipping the pelvis forward and back and left to right. Now we want to shift it on a more sort of horizontal plane here. So let's go for it. So we might start with the right hip, and still in relation to our fishbowl here, the water wouldn't be moving or tipping in any direction. What we want to do is keep that water level as flat as possible. So keep the water as still as possible while we press our right hip towards our right heel, lengthening the right side of the body. And then swapping sides, shortening the right side of the body as the left side lengthens. This is quite often the trickiest movement to do. So we'll do a couple of those. Lengthen right side body, shorten left side. Lengthen left side, shorten right side. Let's do one or two more. And you should start to feel this really nice release in the lower back here. And now shortening over the right side. Shortening the left side. And then we'll come back to a neutral position. Still with that fishbowl on our abdomen here, we're going to bring all the movement together. So what we would do is we would be sort of trying to coat all sides of the fishbowl. Imagine that water is swirling around. So what we will do is we'll start off by tipping it towards the knees. And then we'll sort of rock into the left hip. And then the water starts to sort of roll around and tip towards the left side of our body. And then we draw the navel in, the tailbone's lifting a little bit. And now that water has swirled around, it's tipping towards my chin or my chest. And then I'm tipping it towards the right hand side now and swirling that water back around towards the knees now as my lower back starts to lift. And as I rock over into the left hip here and the water sort of tips towards the left side, I'm actually shortening this right side of my body. So that movement sort of created as well. And then I'm drawing the navel in, lengthening this space between the right hip and right ribs as the water swirls around. Then I'm lifting into the lower back as we tip back towards the knees. Hope that makes sense. And let's continue like that. So this bowl is, or this fishbowl, the water in this fishbowl is just swirling around in this nice even sort of speed, swirling around the fishbowl here. The sides of the body are shortening and lengthening. The lower back is shortening and lengthening. The hips are swaying from side to side, so the back and front body is twisting gently as well. And we might try to come back in the opposite direction. So let's swirl that water back in the opposite direction. So now I'm shortening the right side body as the left side extends, tipping the water towards my knees, and then tipping the water over to the right hand side as I gently shorten, draw the tailbone, draw the pubic bone in towards my body, tipping that water towards my chin, then over to the left-hand side again. And let's go with that. Imagine the water just swirling around that fishbowl. So every little part of your body, around the hips, around the lower back and the pelvis, is getting a little bit of a moment to just shorten and lengthen and release here. And we'll settle back in to a neutral position, or continue with this movement for as long as you like. And that's the fishbowl technique. I hope you enjoyed it.